And now, live from Sunday night, it's the Don't Download Ram Show, starring John and Greg.
Hi, I'm Greg.
Hi, I'm Jonathan, and today we're going to teach you about the mystical world of computers.
When most people think of computers, they may think of things like laptops or a desktop computer, but computers are everywhere. Your phone, your game console, even your car. A computer is basically an electronic system that thinks. It sounds simple, but there's a lot of different parts to a computer that we think would be beneficial for any computer owner to know. For simplicity's sake, we're going to stick with personal computers that everyone has and try to run down the different parts so that everyone can have a better computer literacy. In case anything goes wrong, just so you know, your computer's a bit better.
The inside of your computer is the real nitty-gritty of this lesson. Later we'll go through things like a case, mouse, and keyboard, but first we want to go through what makes the computer run to begin with. The internal computer parts we are going to talk about today are the motherboard, CPU, GPU, RAM, SSD, OS, hard drive, and PSU. And that may sound like nonsense to you now, but we're going to go through them one by one, so you'll be an expert at the end.
First, we're going to learn all about the motherboard. The motherboard is a large board containing circuitries and ports. It's one of the most important parts of the computer because it's where everything kind of goes to connect. The motherboard is full of different slots and pins for everything to plug into. Its main purpose is to let all parts communicate with each other. You can say the motherboard is the computer, okay? The motherboard is the computer because of how important it is to make sure that the computer functions. All the other parts have their own functions, but it all funnels to the motherboard, which decides what to do with the information. There's a lot between motherboards, and some can only take certain parts. So if you're shopping around, you'll want to make sure that your parts are compatible. And if you don't know what to do, or you don't know how to do that, don't worry. We have a selection later that will really help you with that.
The central processing unit, or the CPU, does exactly what its name suggests. Processes all the information from your computer programs. It's typically a small square piece that has a side covered in small complex pins that slips right into the CPU slot on the motherboard. When it comes to finding a powerful CPU, you want to look for gigahertz, or GHz, of the part. The higher the gigahertz, the faster the processor. It's as simple as that.
Now next, I'll let you guess. Alright, come on, get ready. I'm just joking, it's the GPU. The GPU is the graphics card. The graphics processing unit, to be more specific. For anyone who wants to know how to play high-end games on their computer, the GPU could be most important for the computer you want. And typically, it's the most expensive. The GPU renders the visuals of your computer and works in tandem with the CPU. It's technically a large rectangle with fans and display ports that you plug into the motherboard. You know, it goes boom, back to the main subject. And when it creates all the visual outputs by your computer, we mean it. From the simple startup logo to playing the latest 3D game in 4K resolution. It's going to pump out all the graphics. All that is being pumped out by the graphics card. Some motherboards even allow multiple graphics cards to beef up your computer even more. So you're trying to run a game on your computer, it's too slow, laggy, the computer itself is overheating, temperature feels like it's the sun. It's probably because the GPU isn't doing too well. So try lowering the settings and the game might be able to run properly at that point. But your GPU isn't going to be working just when you're playing games. Many video editors, artists, can benefit from the GPU because it literally creates the visuals you're making. But you don't do any of those activities without the GPU. If you do any of those activities without one, you can't. They're expensive. They're very expensive.
The random access memory, or RAM, is essentially the brain capacity of your computer. It's typically a thin rectangle piece that comes in pairs that can be plugged into slots into the motherboard. The RAM temporarily stores information created by your programs and allows it to be accessed immediately. If you have a lot of RAM, Your computer can handle numerous different programs running without any slowdown or issues. But if you have low RAM, then it'll have difficulties running many programs at once. You can determine the size of your RAM by the gigabytes of the sticks. For basic computer use, you'll want about 8 gigabytes of RAM, but having 16 is also a great way to reduce stress on your computer. And you can have a total of 4 RAM sticks plugged into the motherboard, so the combination of different sticks is very malleable. And an additional pro tip, you can't download RAM.
You cannot download RAM.
RAM is a physical thing. It is a physical thing you buy. You cannot download it.
It's not off the internet.
No, so don't go online and try to download free RAM if you need more RAM.
We will find you.
It's a virus.
We will. Don't let me catch you.
Don't download RAM.
Don't download RAM.
Just buy it. It's like $30.
Just do it.
Moving on.
The operating system, or the OS, can be compared to the personality of your computer. This is the software that's going to manage all of the other software and hardware on your computer. The most common OS that you'll probably know is Microsoft Windows or Apple Mac OS. Some people like Linux, but nobody really cares about Linux. It's dead in the water. When building your computer, you'll need to purchase an OS to load into your computer. But for products like a laptop, the OS will already be preloaded into it. Out of all computer parts, there's probably least variety and choice when it comes to OS. So what seems good to you, don't worry about it too much. Just get it.
There's 2 different types of storage that will be important to your computer. The solid state drive, or SSD, and the hard disk drive, or the HDD. These 2 products are just different ways of doing the same thing. They both store all sorts of files for your computer long term. Any documents, pictures, videos, or game files you have on your computer will be stored on one of these drives. An SSD is more expensive than an HDD, but it's newer and faster because it uses memory chips. But HDDs are slower and bulkier because it uses a spinning disk to store data, but are usually cheaper and more easily accessible for consumers. Whatever you choose may not make a huge difference to the average consumer, but if you're trying to maximize computer speed, a good tip is to get small, dedicated SSDs to exclusively store the OS files. This will make the OS run faster and can be seen in lightning fast startup times on your computer. General tip for all computer owners is to keep your storage as free as clutter as you can. The less there is in the storage, the less information your computer needs to retrieve, and the faster it'll go.
Then, lastly, out of all the little parts, there's the power supply unit, or the PSU. PSU is going to give your computer the power it needs to run. Get it? Power supply, power, run. It's in the name. Depending on the wattage of the PSU, it can be a small box or a rather large box with a big old plug in it. There isn't much to think about when it comes to the PSU besides finding the reputable brand and the appropriate wattage for your system. If you build your computer, the parts you're looking at will have the recommended wattage on the specifications, but don't make this simple mistake. The recommended wattage on each individual part is not the wattage needed to run just that specific part. The recommended wattage is just trying to say that there will probably be enough to run that part and the rest of the computer. So just a good method to get the recommended wattage is whatever the most powerful and intensive part needs. Whatever the strongest part, get the most wattage. Just like that. And now, ladies and gentlemen, for the fun part, we're talking about the body. The external part of your computer it doesn't require much thought or matching parts. Most of it is based on the personal preference of what type of peripherals you want.
The case is the body of your computer. If you build your computer, you're going to need to put the motherboard with all of its part in a case just to keep it all together. And cases range in all shapes and sizes, from big to small to extra small to even teeny tiny. The amount of customization available for computers is staggering. So you'll just want to find a case that will be compatible for your motherboard and large enough to fit it all. Other than that, find what appeals to you and enjoy.
Then there's the keyboard. The keyboard is the main control of your computer. You can get really fancy keyboards with lights. I like them a lot personally. There's extra special keys, fancy bells, whistles, tactical keys that make a lot of noise while pressing. For a significant amount of money, they all cost a lot of money. Computers are expensive. Or you can steal a really basic one from your place of work. Both of these options fulfill the same core functions you'll need. You can even use an Apple keyboard for your Microsoft computer and vice versa with no issue, although it may be confusing at times.
What goes with the keyboard also goes with the mouse. Some mice glow with different colors, have unique sensitivity settings, and even more optional buttons that you can code to do different things. But as long as it has a left click, a right click, and a scroll wheel, it'll suffice as a mouse. Just make sure you get one that's comfortable for your hand.
Then there's the monitor of your computer. That's just another word for the screen. As long as you can plug your display port into your computer, you're fine. Just plug the display port from your computer into it. It works. Almost anything with a screen can be the monitor. Of course, you'll want to get a screen with a size and resolution of your liking, but you can never really go wrong with a cheap, effective 1080p 60 Hz monitor. If your computer is powerful enough to render things like 4K, then you'll need to get a 4K monitor to reap the benefits. The same thing goes for frame rate. Some fancy people get like the curved monitors, but remember, the fancier it is, the most expensive.
Finally, the fans of your computer will be very important to the smooth running of the computer itself. Parts like the CPU and GPU get extremely hot when doing almost anything, so your computer will typically need fans to make sure it's getting proper cooling. The GPU typically has fans already built into it to cool it effectively, so you won't have to worry about that. But the CPU will need its own dedicated CPU fan. Without it, the CPU can overheat, crash your computer, and become damaged, so don't skimp when buying a nice fan. You'll also want separate fans located on the case of the computer that will bring in outside air and push out the hot exhaust. Some really fancy computers have things like oil cooling or even water cooling that pumps cool pipes of water through the computer to silently cool it. But while these are very cool, pun intended, they can be very complex and expensive. But if you're willing to put a lot of effort and you're experienced computer builder, it's worth it.
You can find all these parts in a wide variety of locations, including retail stores down the block from you. You can go to websites specialized in computer parts, and when building a computer, you'll usually have to mix and match where you're getting your preferred parts based on the price and availability. Unless you get really lucky getting everything in one place, it's most likely not going to happen. But good retail places to get these parts from can be a Target, a Walmart, a Best Buy, or any other department store with a dedicated technology section.
If you can't get it there, you'll want to go to websites like newegg.com, microcenter.com, or pcpartpicker.com. PC Part Picker specifically can help you choose parts that will be compatible with each other. If you don't use a service that tells you what's compatible or not, you'll have to figure that out yourself. This isn't as hard as it seems, as you'll just need to check the specifications of the parts you want to pick. Each motherboard supports a specific type of slot, and each product is compatible with certain slots. So all you need to do is match the slot types together in the specifications and you'll be golden. When you finally get all your parts and actually begin building your computer, then all you need to do is follow the instructions with each part. They all come with their own instructions to install it. It'll take a couple of hours to get it all together, so remember, take it slow, be careful, and relax.
And that's it, ladies and gentlemen.
That's it.
That's how you build a computer.
Yeah.
And, you know, John, all the videos I see of people making these fancy custom computers, I started getting scared, like I could never afford it.
Well, you probably can't. But that doesn't mean that this information can't be relevant to you. Maybe you'll decide to buy computer parts one day and build your own computer. It is kind of like a rich person hobby, but it can be done on a budget. It's not impossible. You'll just have to require some cash. And even if you aren't building a computer, every computer has some of these parts. Your phone, this laptop, they all have things like a CPU, GPU, processor, all that type of stuff. So even if you're not building a computer, you just have a laptop, or you're just vaguely interested in technology, this information can serve to just help you, because all computers are kind of the same thing, just different forms of it. And I think that's it. That's all we have for you.
It's a fascinating technology world out there. So remember this next time you think about building a computer, go to our video.
And don't download RAM.
Do not download RAM.
Don't download RAM.
Don't download RAM.
Don't download RAM.
We will find you.
Don't download RAM.
Don't